descended into the Bottom Dwellers Dive Shack, a commercial diving podcast by working divers for divers. This is LB Diver.
And this is Johnny.
Bottom Dwellers Dive Shack. Some of you guys have been made aware of a construction diver death that happened recently in Miami Dade County. We know that anytime a diver dies, whether he's a commercial diver or recreational diver, it's a sad thing, especially if they're working, regardless of how you feel as far as untrained divers doing construction work. It's still a very sad thing that shouldn't have happened. So we wanted to give some of the facts that we received from sources, from government sources. And we wanted to let you know that, first of all, this was a hookah death.
It was. And
you can actually see the hookah compressor on the news reports, on the video footage. So that's something that we, kind of assumed, because Florida, they seem to love the hookah. And Florida's a land of scuba divers, so there's so many scuba divers per capita. And some of these people feel that they can do construction work underwater, when OSHA regs clearly state that if you're doing construction work, it has to be surface supplied in a hard hat by a trained commercial diver. So already right off of the bat, the company wasn't doing something they were supposed to be doing. They weren't a construction diving company by any means. Downright Construction, or Downright Engineering is the name of the company. And their trucks were on site. So they were there and they knew what was going on. And shame on them, first of all. I'm just going to say that. I mean, it sounds like we're attacking them, because we are. You companies out there, you should take notice. You shouldn't be doing this kind of work if you're not qualified and if you don't have the personnel for it. This diver, he didn't have to lose his life. I don't know the particulars as far as the relationship between the worker and the company, but we do know that that company was on site. They saw the rig, they saw the compressors, and they were doing culvert work. They were dredging in that pipe with it looked like AGA masks from the video that we saw on the news footage. With, I think the hose looked like it was like almost 250 foot long or something, 200 feet long.
Yeah.
So the culvert there, the pipe that the diver was in, it looked to be about 10 foot diameter, and it was 150 feet long. So you have a small hookah compressor with about 200 feet of airline at minimum, and a second airline that's the same length on August. The other report that we got was there were no communications. The communications that were referenced was a rope tied to the diver's wrist.
After he tells me he was working with his uncle, who's a diver for Downright Construction, at this job site when, after nearly 5 minutes under the water, his co-workers were unable to communicate with him.
He just didn't resurface and you guys called 911?
From above in Sky 10, we watched as rescue crews raced to the canal near a construction zone off Northwest 119th Street, just west of 22nd Avenue. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue said several units responded, including their divers.
We deployed 6 divers to search for the worker.
From the time the 911 call was made to the time he was pulled from the water, 40 minutes had passed, and finding him, rescue crew said, was no easy task.
Our dive lights are pretty much ineffective due to the settlement in the water. And our divers were diving by feel, which is how they located them inside the pipe.
So, yeah, basically
rope
pulls.
tied to the diver's wrist, pulls. And then I think in the early news reports, the crew had said that they didn't see the bubbles. So that was their communication that, the diver was in trouble. So then that's when they activated EMS. We don't know exactly how long the diver was in there before they activated EMS.
Right.
But when the call was made, by the time they got the diver out, 40 minutes had already passed roughly. And that was as reported by
the news,
the news and emergency services. So this diver was in there doing dredging work on hookah.
Performing a penetration dive.
We can't say for a fact whether there was a diver stationed at the entrance, but you can make some educated assumptions that there wasn't. There was a diver there that was part of the crew on the second hookah rig, on the second hookah line, that did go in there and tried and tried to recover the diver. That has been reported to government authorities as happening. The diver that went in was not able to recover the stricken diver, the guy inside that passed away eventually. So then EMS came out, and their scuba divers were able to go in there and locate the body. They also said it was a very difficult dive because of the visibility. So everything was stirred up, and it was really difficult to see. The curious thing about it that we're going to find out later was that there was still freeboard in that pipe. So as a trained diver, if you're diving, on, let's say, on a surface supplied AGA, worst case scenario, you would just float up and take your AGA off and be able to breathe just fine. So why this wasn't able to happen, I don't know.
I was unaware that they had freeboard.
Yeah, it wasn't completely full. So there was freeboard in there. Now they did have, to take in consideration, they had the rope tied to the diver's wrist. They had the hookah line, which was probably free floating. It didn't look like he had a harness on from, again, the news footage. It looked like it was just his clothes or a wetsuit or whatever. And he also had the dredge hose in that pipe as well. So anyone that's done this type of work knows that sometimes it's difficult to keep your hose clear, and you're constantly checking. And this is with a surface supplied hard hat diving umbilical, which are really girthy.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have to pay attention so that way your hose doesn't get sucked into the dredge head, or your hand doesn't get sucked in the dredge head. And that happens pretty often when you're doing small dredging stuff like that with no visibility. It's happened to me before, and it's kind of a bear to get your arm out of there. Now imagine if you're doing it with a low volume of air coming in, because those hookah compressors don't put out as much as a commercial diving compressor.
Mm-mm.
And when you add the line loss from 2 hoses into the AGA, I'm sure he was breathing hard, and it was tough to breathe, So again, we don't know exactly why he passed away, but the circumstance that diver was in should never have occurred. So it sounds like a scathing, update, but I think many of us are tired of hearing stories like this. This is not the first story to come out of the South or come out of Florida in instances like this, So, I mean, I can count the amount of violations this company is going to face, but we'll just wait till the OSHA report comes out, and that's the information. That's the news that we got. And for any of the family members that are listening to this update, give our buddy Bobby Jalise a call, because he'd definitely love to consult with you guys. And it's again, something that shouldn't have happened. So this has been a Bottom Dwellers Dive Shack news update. And hopefully you guys will tune in, stay up to date with the current diving news. Make sure you give us a like and a follow. And like I said, if there's any more developments, Johnny, we'll keep covering the story.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said, anytime a diver dies, it's a terrible thing, and it affects our industry too. Just because it's a scuba diver trying to do commercial diving work, that still has an impact on insurance rates for commercial diving companies.
Correct.
So, but yeah, we'll see you on the next episode of the Bottom Dwellers Dive Shack. Keep listening.